experts who have done a lot of research on this particular topic, and that is remittance. There are cases where people receive monies from all around the world, especially where we've seen a lot of Africans traveling, and they see the need to send money down to their family. And this is something that has created a lot of conversation within the financial sector. But do you know that remittances over the last 6 years has doubled to the tune of 100 billion US dollars, and that is in 2023, and that has contributed enormously more than foreign direct investment into not just Ghana alone, but even across Africa. There is data to prove that, and we will be also expanding the conversation with my group of experts who are already seated here. This morning, I'm privileged to have seated in my immediate left, Dr. Richmond Etiahene. He's written a lot of articles on this particular topic, that is remittances, and he will be sharing his knowledge and his insight on this particular topic. Also seated on my far left is in the person of Renel Badu. He's the head of everyday banking at the personal private banking at Stanbic Bank. Gentlemen, it's good to have you this morning.
Sure, good to be here. Thank you.
And to you who are here with us, I say welcome to this morning's program. And to our viewers online, make sure you join the conversation as well as we extend the discussion going forward from here. My senior brother, Richmond Amwa, will also be taking over in the course of the program. But let's go straight to the conversation right now. Let me start with Renel. First of all, many have been hearing the word remittances and wondering whether is it a different terminology, or is it related to finance or even economics, and where is it coming from? But give us a bit of education. When we say remittances, what is it, and also how important is it basically?
Yeah, Winston, thank you for that, and a good morning to you. So I think when we talk about remittances, we're talking about funds that are coming in from mostly migrant workers. Mm-hmm. So people who have relocated from their home countries to other countries for work most of the time, having the need to send back money home. Usually sending back money home to family, to friends, and this could be for multiple or various reasons, right? But the activity of migrants in, countries outside their home countries, sending back money home is what we categorize as remittances.
Can someone basically say these are the benefits of brain drain?
Well, you could say that, I guess. You could say that, yes. So it does have its positives and negatives. But I guess what you're saying is what it is.
All right. So let's look at it from the holistic perspective. In what way can we say remittances kind of provides more benefit to a nation or an economy?
So remittances, the way it is structured, it provides a steady flow of foreign exchange to any economy or any country, right? In sub-Saharan Africa, I think in 2022, we had about 53 or so billion US dollars coming in. If you look at the Ghana situation, in total, we had about 4.8 billion US dollars coming in 2023. 2022 was about 4.6 billion dollars thereabouts. And we're only second to Nigeria. Obviously, for obvious reasons, Nigeria being having a bigger economy, a larger population and whatnot, they brought in about 20 billion USD. But if you think about it in the grand scheme of things, the fact that, as a country, we, as an example, sought help from the IMF, we're looking at getting how much? About 3 billion USD. In the same year, inward remittances brought in, 4.8 billion. So it tells you just how significant the business of remittances is.
Let me bring Dr. Richmond Etiahene into the conversation. Renaud has painted a picture that indeed we are sitting on a good mine. And consistently, we've seen comparatively to our current fiscal deficit, our situation as an economy. What is it that, compared to other resources, gold, cocoa, and bauxite, and we've seen the conversation, why are we having all these resources, yet our standard of living, our economy, our situation is as dire as it is now? paint a picture for us and let us understand the place of remittance, what it could have done or would have done if we were to prioritize that sector.
Thank you very much, Wilson. I think I will call it super gold. Mm-hmm. Super gold. The reason why I qualify it as super gold, as you said, migrants' earnings being flown from your other jurisdictions to support the economy. Why I also call it a super gold? We don't destroy the environment. We don't destroy the environment. People hard work brings in money. And for the discussions this morning, those of you who are interested in data, between 2014 to 2023, Ghana earned what was recorded officially by the central bank, 28.6 billion over a 10-year period. As against cocoa, those of you care, cocoa gave us only 18.7. And what amazes me most is gold. You hear people talking in this country. Recently, I heard somebody saying that Ghana extracted 7.6 billion last year, and this year we are going to get 10 billion. Let me put the facts straight to those of you here. What was captured by Bank of Ghana for last year was 1.4 billion, if you go to the statement. And for those of you who want to listen, between 2014 and 2023, gold extracted in this economy worth 50.6 billion. How much came into the balance of payments through Bank of Ghana was only 7.6. Yes, I picked the data source from Bank of Ghana statement over a period. So when you hear people talking about gold, it's not anything we should be celebrating, because it contributed only to the balance of payment or the currency reserves 7.6 over 10-year period. Cocoa did 18. Remittances did 28.9 billion. If you knock the gold, if you add cocoa to gold, it brought only 26. Remittances still top, adding the two, leaving a gap of 2.3 billion. So that is why some of us have described it as gold, super gold, because it is something, if it's well structured, captured, traced into the balance sheet, I think Ghana will be somewhere, maybe near Dubai, because it is something that will support the economy. And I'm only talking about the remittances that are captured by Central Bank. I'm not talking about the difference between the World Bank is 36 billion, but the country captured only 28 billion. So if we were be able to trace, track, and capture, we would have captured about 36 billion. And that is far more exceedingly above than gold and cocoa. So that is why this morning I find this conversation very interesting, very incisive, and very educative, so that we can develop our competences, track it. Like, I'll give you an example. Bangladesh, the place they fought recently, where they overthrew their government. It is a source that is keeping the economy. If you check the records, there are too many people, Bangladeshi people around Saudi Arabia, Kuwait, Qatar. They bring more than 2 billion averagely every month. So they pay critical attention and structured it in such a way that these remittances will be formally captured through the banking system to support trade and payment for services. That is why I find this platform very, very, very interesting and challenging, so that we can add value to it and increase the remittances flow to support the economy.
Doc, I want to query a bit data. You mentioned that we are able to generate about 50.6 billion in terms of our gold reserves and data. and data and all that. Could it be the kind of negotiations or contracts that we've gone into that is giving us less than what we're supposed to benefit as a country? That is why we are recording those figures.
I think I also want to thank Her Ladyship, Mrs. Sophia Akufo. Recently, he said something to Ghanaians that we signed a colonial agreement where you are earning, Ghana is earning averagely between 13.5% to 15%, compared to Botswana. Botswana used to be in Ghana state. Those of you know Botswana, it's about diamond, the biggest diamond in Africa. They were facing the same challenges like Ghana, 13%, 15%. Then they told American De Beers group, saying that, we're not getting return. If you don't improve your lot, please pack and go. Initially, De Beers wanted to go, but what the diamond on the ground, what does it benefit to Botswana? It can be there to their US part. It is you who needs it. They came and renegotiated. As I speak to you, 2023, they moved to 30%, and they are going to go to 40% next year. So for every $1 million, 400 million will be staying in Botswana. So I believe we have signed a bad contract, and I quote Mrs. Sophia Ladyship, former Chief Justice, that it is not a circumstance that they cannot renegotiate. We can negotiate because when the golds are in the ground, we Ghanaians, we don't chop gold, we don't eat gold. They use the gold. It is only yesterday or 3 days ago, I heard the vice president saying that he's going to do gold regime currency like Zimbabwe. But if you only have a return of average of 15%, it is not sustainable. Zimbabwe currently has renegotiated. No, they are creating companies in Zimbabwe are now mining it. So averagely they are getting about 50%. So that is why the Zimbabwe foreign currency, what we call the gold standard, is going to work. Yours is 15%. It cannot be sustainable. Those of you who have been to South Africa, why South African currency globally looks very no good, but the economy looks good? Because most of the gold mines are retained in South Africa.
All right. Let me bring Reynold into the conversation as well. Right now, Doc has laid a foundation on the aspect of we capturing. It says amounts recorded and what has been reflected are two different things. As per your assessment, you are in the banking sector, would you say we have the restricted policy that is able to identify, that is able to locate, trace the amount of remittances that come into the system? And if we have not, where should the target or direction be?
Yeah, Winston, thank you. So there are definitely some policies that have been put, in place by the Bank of Ghana to, at least guard or, guide the business of remittances. I think one of those, the most significant ones, was in 2019 when the Payment Service and Services Systems and Services Act was brought up, right? And that's essentially allowed, beyond just the banks operating in remittances, it allowed fintechs, payment service providers, money transfer organizations as well, to all interact in a pool that allows us to, move the remittance of business from a solely cash-based, sort of form to a format where people are now able to receive remittances, irrespective of where they are, directly into their bank accounts, directly into their mobile money wallets and whatnot. So in terms of policy, we can definitely say that there has been some good policy. I think in Ghana as well, if you receive remittances, you don't pay taxes. There are no taxes being charged on that as compared to other financial services that are offered. And all those things help to facilitate, the business of remittances. Okay, but there's definitely some additional work that needs to be done. And if you listen to Doc, it has to mostly be done in the area of monitoring the remittances that come in. Because sometimes the report that you see from the Bank of Ghana, if you compare that to the report that you see from the World Bank, you would see that there are differences. And it appears that we are reporting a bit less I'm saying it appears, right? It's possible that data sources could be different, which could be accounting for that. But that definitely tells you that there are certain, let me say, gray areas or loopholes that are probably being exploited to the benefit of those who are doing the exploitation, but not necessarily to the benefits of the whole nation. So you have a situation where even though we are recording huge amounts of forex coming into the country, we actually do not see that, like we may see that we are recording huge, but when you look at the reports in itself, you would see that what actually comes in is much smaller. And so the impact that it's supposed to have on the economy doesn't really manifest like that, right? And that's the challenge that we've had over time.
There are instances where individuals who want to send money to their relatives here in Ghana will locate someone, identify someone in the foreign country and say, I have this amount of dollars, get someone down there, I'll give corresponding amount down there because I don't want to pay the charges, which has kind of become the trend in some part of the country. As someone who plays a key role in the banking sector, how can we bridge that gap to ensure the transfer goes to the right channel instead of illicit financial flows?
So this has really to do with the cost of remittances.
Yes.
That's what we have seen over time. Now, you would see ever since the Payments Act was introduced, we've seen money transfer organizations coming in and, for example, offering to process remittances, last mile remittances for free. So they will tell you, unlike the traditional remittance service providers who would say maybe pay $5, $10 to send this money into the country or through SWIFT or whatnot, they would say, well, we can send money to Ghana for free. But here's a catch. They're sending the money to Ghana for free, but at a very expensive rate. So that, at the end of the day, ends up affecting even our local currency to the extent that you have a lot of competition on the send side. Many money transfer organizations trying to get the attention of consumers, right, to be able to use their services to send money into Ghana, right? And for them to be attractive to these consumers, what do? Well, they have to quote rates that are way higher than what the standard exchange rates in the country are. So, for example, today we may be looking at 15.5 percent as 15.5. Ghana cedis to the dollar. And so there's competition to quote as close as possible to that 15.5, where you have some MTOs even moving a bit higher just to be able to get individuals to use those channels, right? So as much as you would see that all these are happening, it creates a bit of a challenge, even for the local economy. The fact that our CD is now, rapidly depreciating because there's all that's coming in, and there's a lot of speculation around what the rates are. All these things coming into play, has all the effects on remittances.
You're still watching the Stanbic Bank Breakfast Meeting happen here at the Labadi Beach Hotel. So if you're watching us live on the show, go to our Facebook page or YouTube. We're also live on Join This channel. Keep sending your messages through. We'll be reading them live on the conversation. Today, we are centered on the remittance system and breaking it down for us to understand how important it is for our economic development as a country. Now, let me go back to Dr. Richmond Etiahene, who is a banking consultant, to understand that he has painted a picture that indeed the remittance structure is a gold mine for economies such as Ghana. There's so much we can do from it. Nonetheless, why has it been the case that we have not been able to center, or let's say, develop that sector to make it more robust and throw more light on it instead of putting it back behind the scenes?
Thank you very much, Winston. I think I want also to get it clear that even those of you who are following the World Bank, I have track it from the World Bank office, not here, from Washington, to confirm the figures that they do send to us. And they validated it. At least last year, 2023, the World Bank recorded 4.6 billion. Out of the 4.6, Bank of Ghana captured 2.8. In the year 2022, the World Bank reported 4.7 billion. Ghana captured only 2.1 billion. So the question, it can go on and on and on up to 2014, except in the year 2017 that Ghana's record was bigger than the World Bank. Mm-hmm. The problem is that we haven't paid much needed attention. Why I'm saying that, in the days where I used to be a treasurer of a bank, there were these MTOs, the Western Union, the MoneyGram, the Rayo, where government have signed an agreement with them based on commission. The amount you do, you paid. When Enra was talking about the Payment Service Act, Payment Services and Service and System Act, 2019, Act 987, in it, there is no bit of it that enhances this money coming into our system. Unlike the Foreign Exchange Act, Act 2006, 723, that mandates that the authorized dealer banks and only Bank of Ghana were expected to hold foreign currencies. In the Payment Service Act, which licenses the fintechs and the blocktech or whatever, the blockchains, there is no power there. What the Bank of Ghana in its guidelines, they should partner local banks. But I can tell you, you don't want to hear, but I will speak to it. We went to Nigeria, copy something. And if you wouldn't mind, let me read this from Nigeria. Chairman of the Presidential Committee of Fiscal Policy and Tax Reform, Honorable Tayo Oyodele, says that.
All right, I think that, Doc, before you make that statement, it's a very critical statement. All of us are yearning to listen to that. I think we'll be working on your microphone shortly. But before then, we are still seeing that, indeed, this issue is not going to end today. So if you're watching us from home, make sure you stay tuned to the channel, because today the amount of revelation, the amount of data-backed conversation is what we are going to be hitting on. So don't change your channel as we stay on this conversation. The conversation from Nigeria, just as you mentioned, and also the research that has consistently been revealed, is something that will be coming on shortly. But before then, let me get Reynald, until we are able to rectify your sound, then we bring our viewers into that very important statement you're about to read. So Reynald, you've heard what Doc has said. Now, before he comes in again, I would like to understand the place, the role of the fintech who are within the sector of collecting remittances, basically. Would you say they have so far been quite transparent in terms of the operation? Because we keep seeing releases from the central bank that this number of fintechs are not licensed, and therefore the operation should not be started. Why should we wait for years after these fintechs have operated within the sector before sanctioning the operations?
Winston, that's a very interesting question.
Is it a very question?
So yes, I mean, when fintechs have or do play their parts, in the value chain for remittances. Like I said, the most important, I would say, most critical parts being the fact that they have over time enabled, direct payments or instant payments. So back then, from the informal times to when we're doing only cash, and for cash, it was mostly at the banks. You would have to, it's only during banking hours. After 5 p.m., the banks are closed. If you receive money over the weekend, you have to wait till the next working day. But fintechs have managed to do that. So banks, you'd see that banks as well are also trying to catch up in that sense and provide the service. So at Stanbic Bank, as an example, we have a very comprehensive remittance platform or system that allows us to manage our remittances from both settlement into last mile, termination. And this is in response to what even the fintechs are also doing to ensure that, as banks as well, we are also positioned in a way that allows us to provide those services with or without, these fintechs being available. Not to say that they are not, their presence there is not relevant, no, but they have, of course, enhanced the business of remittances, but it's up to us and up to the regulator as well to make sure that the right policies and frameworks are in place, to be able to.
Before I hand over, let me take the final word from Doc. Your statement.
My statement, as my young brother said, you don't want to hear it. I will say it. In the World Bank of Ghana's own 2023 published account, it said remittances brought in 22 billion cedis into the remittances space, and then 57 billion cedis in the remittances space. But what it fails to do, it fails to tell us under IAS 21. And again, how does that money dovetail into the central bank's account? So there is a regulatory dichotomy between what the traditional banks are doing and what the fintechs are doing. And I have said that there must be a complete change, because under the Foreign Exchange Act, Session Act 72006-723, subsections 15, it states categorically that it is only authorized dealer banks and Bank of Ghana. And when the Bank of Ghana came with the fintech, it's a fantastic idea, very innovative. But what is missing is the accountability of the foreign exchange.
Yeah.
Because when you sit here, it's in your city, but who is checking the foreign currency? And that is why I wanted to read the Nigerian statement. Tayo Oyodele, chairman of the Presidential Committee on Fiscal Policy and Tax Reform, in June said, Nigerian received 20 billion, according to the World Bank, $20 billion in 2023. However, only 2 billion found himself into the banks. All the other 18 billion has been externalized. Those of you who know international trade. Externalized means that the city is being churned, the naira is being churned in Nigeria. Somebody is withholding the equivalent of the dollar or euro or pound. Yeah. And I'm agitating that we should synchronize it, streamline the regulation, so that these monies are tracked, traced, and captured, at least for the banking sector and Bank of Ghana. If we do that, the city will not be running like Usain Bolt has been running. Now it's not Usain Bolt. I think somebody is there. We will be able to stop the depreciation and support our current account position. Because in the World Bank statement, those of you who have read it, they said Ghana balance of payment position improved in 2023. Do you know what they said? Because of higher remittances, because it was 2.8. So if we have captured all the equivalents, at least the city will be running, it will be standing firm. Okay. So I believe that we meet here, we want to talk about it dispassionately based on data and contribute to our quota to the Ghanaian economic development.
At least the city just returned from Paris Olympics. We'd like to first of all thank Dr. Richmond Chahine, the banking consultant, and also the Renal Bedu, who is the head everyday banking, personal and private banking at Stanbic Bank, to start with us on this conversation. It's a whole conversation that will be going on here this morning. My name is Winston Taki. We take a short break. When we come back, my senior colleague and boss, Winston Amwa, will be taking over the conversation right from here. Stay tuned. We'll be right back after this break.
My colleague Winston Taki set the tone already with a great conversation. I like the bit about Usain Bolt and everything. And the reference to the Nigerian situation, how out of the close to $20 billion of remittance, only $2 billion found itself into the Nigerian economy, with the rest not in the Nigerian economy. Of course, our situation is no different. I'm sure for many of you, you've heard of the conversations in the past weeks about some discrepancies in reporting. Well, when it comes to reporting, it's a very subjective issue sometimes, so we don't want to get into it. But of course, what we are interested in this morning is how we can use the system to impact the Ghanaian economy. We're looking at, well, the World Bank says in 2023, about $4.7 billion. You may want to ask the question, where is that? Well, that's a conversation we must have. And in having that conversation, we must ensure that at the end of it all, Ghana benefits. My name is Winston Amwa, and I'd be in charge of this ceremony. We thank the Almighty God for how far He's brought us, and we ask Him to take control of this program. We'll now invite the MD of Graphic Communications Group to give us some brief remarks, and then we'll hear from a representative of the Stanbic Bank CEO. Let's welcome him with a round of applause.
The representative of the Chief Executive of Stanbic Bank, Ghana, our keynote speaker, Yao Apialate, Partner Financial Advisory, Deloitte Ghana, and Africa Partner Infrastructure, Professor Samuel Latte, one of our distinguished guests and sometime panelists, Dr. Etuahini, who we just heard earlier, the editor, graphic business, Boahini Isamwa, the director, finance, graphic communications group limited, Samuel Essel, the director, marketing and sales, graphic communications group limited, Franklin Sowa, invited guests, distinguished participants, ladies, gentlemen, and our audience members across our digital and media partner networks. It is an honor to welcome and share a thought with you at our breakfast meeting made possible by our host, Labadi Beach Hotel, powered by Graphic Business and enabled by Stanbic Bank. The theme for this morning, as put together by the Graphic Business and Stanbic Bank Working Group, zoned in on the remittance system impact on the economy. I believe we've had some of these conversations starting ahead. But I'll just make a couple of notes so we can move into the core of what the keynote and other experts would share with us. Fundamentally, we are recognizing that remittances significantly contribute to local economic development, aiding small businesses, home improvements, and education. And as we heard, Ghana is number 2 in the sub-Saharan Africa region, followed closely by Senegal, and also, and Kenya, with Nigeria being at the 4. Now, as we noted earlier also, technological developments, particularly around the financial technology companies, have also boosted this digital remittance ecosystem. And they've brought a certain advantage to the ordinary recipient or consumer by way of cost reduction. But the question also is this intermediation that these multiplicity of technology companies known simply as fintechs have done are also causing a certain disruption in the data capture that central bank, in our case, the Bank of Ghana, is able to see. Out of this conversation, I think it is our hope that between our keynote speaker and some of the expert guests herein gathered will be helped to refocus this conversation and ensure that this potential revenue channel is properly captured so that we, the people of Ghana, can benefit from all the benefits that such inbound remittances should give us. The Managing Director's representative, Stanbic Bank, our guests, I am confident that the graphic business and Stanbic Bank project teams have assembled the right skill set and experience in our keynote speaker and audience members to give us honed-in insights on how to tap and capture value from the growing international remittance system to positively impact and benefit the economy of Ghana. I welcome you, and I thank you for your audience. I hope that we'll have a very engaging discussion which would ultimately impact how we capture these revenues to the benefit of our economy. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Managing Director of Graphic Communications Group Limited, Akufo-Addo. We'll now welcome the representative of the CEO of Stanbic Bank, Kojo-Labi, who is Communications Manager. Let's welcome him with a round of applause.
Good morning, sir. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Good morning. My shoes are not big enough to stand in for Mr. Kwame Nasimening. But from Stanbic, we believe this is a good opportunity to be part of a conversation that is very, very critical for Ghana. As we saw with the team, the remittance system and its impact on the Ghanaian economy. It certainly has an impact. But if it has an impact and we believe in growth for the Ghanaian economy, we can only have questions for the August gathering here. Who wouldn't like to hear a year from today that now when we talk about the contribution of the remittance system to our economy, we are now at 10% or 15%. I can only wish you fruitful deliberations and hope that Mr. Apia-Latte and his people can surely get answers for us today. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Kojo-Labi. And as indicated by the MD of Graphic, we're changing, the format a little bit. Today's is not going to be a panel discussion like we've seen in the past. We're going to have, a keynote speaker who would share his views on the remittance system and its impact on the Ghanaian economy. And then we'll open the floor for all the questions. And so our speaker for this morning is a partner and Africa leader for infrastructure and capital projects and economic advisory in Deloitte Africa. He has over 15 years Big Four accounting firm, that's Deloitte, PwC, and EY experience, working on high-profile financial advisory transactions in corporate finance, market study, feasibility studies, economic advisory, financial modeling, business valuation, project appraisal, and implementation in Ghana and across Africa. He has extensive experience in transaction advisory for several sectors, including transportation, energy, mining, manufacturing, telecommunication, and fast-moving consumer goods. He's been involved in public-private partnerships, project financing, structuring, and contract negotiation for infrastructure projects valued at over $10 billion across Africa, including Nigeria, Sierra Leone, the Gambia, Kenya, Botswana, Eswatini, and South Africa. He's a chartered accountant and a lawyer. He's a fellow of the Association of Chartered Certified Accountants and the Institute of Chartered Accountants, Ghana. He holds a Bachelor of Laws and a qualifying certificate from the Ghana Law School. He also holds a Bachelor of Science in Business Administration from the University of Ghana and a Master's degree in Finance from the University of Cambridge, UK. Let's welcome Yao Apia-Latte. And so you'll be joining us shortly, and we'll be speaking on the remittance system and its impact on the Ghanaian economy. And already the tone has been set. Dr. Richmond Etienne is giving you all the things that, the challenges and what could be done, but it's important to hear from Yao on how this can actually impact the Ghanaian economy. So at this juncture, let's welcome Yao Apia-Latte.
Thank you very much, Winston. I followed keenly the discussions that we had. It sets the tone for my presentation. So I've got a brief presentation and obviously to start a conversation or to continue the conversation that we've already had. So I'll start with something that we are very familiar with for those of you who've been watching Ghanaian TV for a long time. You remember this advert. So this is a young woman who had received money from her son abroad, and she was just jumping all the way to the sea where her husband is, and she started shouting, "Minsaka, Minsaka, Minsaka." So you remember that advert? And so if you remember that advert very well, you notice that that small boy in the boat asked her, "Na sikano wehe." So this morning, we've had a number of or amounts thrown around, or so many figures being heard. Ghana is about $5 billion in remittances. The question as the small boy asks is what? Naskano wehe. So what have we used the money for? I think that's something that we should be asking ourselves, and ask ourselves the right question in terms of where is the money? What can we do to utilize the resources that we have? And I think the joke that we have on the next slide, you can see, Mr. Bean says, if you think money can't buy happiness, just transfer it to my account. So if you think money cannot buy happiness, just transfer it to my account. So today, my presentation will cover some of the areas that have been discussed, but a lot more in detail. So we start with an overview of Sub-Saharan Africa remittance system. So we don't just want to compare ourselves with our peers in West Africa, but even in Sub-Saharan Africa, what are we doing as Ghana, or how are we doing in remittances? Ghana's remittance ecosystem, then we've got Ghana remittance regulations and its impact. We've spoken about Bank of Ghana. There are a few other regulators that can come into the picture to help us benefit from remittances. Ghana's readiness to drive remittance ecosystem. So the point is, I've done infrastructure all across Africa, a number of countries. The last place I closed a deal recently was in Eswatini. So the Kingdom of Eswatini, those of you used to call it Swaziland. So it's not true. The king says it's not true that every year he marries virgins. So he says wherever I go, I should tell all of you that it's not true that they do that or he does that. So please, let's not buy into that conversation. But you'll notice that people are raising funds from different sources, and remittance is one of them. So we don't have to do the Euro bonds. That's not the only way you can use to survive your economy. There are others that you can use, and one of them is remittance. And I think we're going to discuss that extensively this morning. So let's look at the picture. In Sub-Saharan Africa, remittance continued to grow. Sub-Saharan Africa remittance grew from 53.5 billion in 2022 to $54 billion in 2023. So this is $54 billion in Sub-Saharan Africa. Looking ahead, the World Bank is also forecasting a significant growth in 2024. So there is no indication of decline in remittances. So the World Bank estimates Ghana, Kenya, Nigeria, Senegal as the 5 significant recipients of remittances. In total, these 5 countries, Nigeria, Ghana, Kenya, Zimbabwe, and Senegal, received about $36 billion in remittances in a year. $36 billion. Ghana alone received $4.9 billion, approximately $5 billion of remittances in 2023. $5 billion of remittance in 2023. That represents 6.4% of our GDP. 6.4% of our GDP. It's contributed by remittances. And so your brothers and sisters living abroad are contributing about 6.4% of your GDP. Have we regulated that source of revenue enough to make enough money out of it? And today we're going to discuss what other countries are doing and how much money has been raised in billions of dollars from diaspora, from indigents living in the diaspora. 85.7% and 1.5% growth in the number of deals and funding in US dollars between 2020 to 2022. And if you go to other countries, in as much as remittance forms a significant portion of our GDP, 6%, in Kenya about 4%. In US and UK, remittance is 0%. In UK, it's about 0.01% to their GDP. So it means that for us in Africa, particularly in sub-Saharan Africa, remittance is a significant source of revenue for us. Whereas in the developed economies, significant is insignificant. They don't rely on it. So look at the trend. Nigeria is number one at $20.5 billion in remittances in a year, followed by Ghana. So Ghana is second next to Nigeria in sub-Saharan Africa in receipt of remittances. So you can see that there's much talk about the Anglophone countries and other countries doing better than Ghana. Where we are positioned, we are next to Nigeria, the biggest economy, in receipt of remittances in sub-Saharan Africa. So if you're excluding the Maghreb, the North Africa region, Ghana is second to Nigeria. So that means you're receiving significant enough to make significant impact to the Ghanaians. Followed by Kenya at 4.2 billion, Zimbabwe at 3.1 billion, and then Senegal at 2.9 billion. Now, what do we use remittances for in sub-Saharan Africa? As you know, it is used for education, support education. I remember very well when I registered for my professional exam, it was my brother who was in UK who gave me money to register for my first professional exam. And so it's the same thing that in the Ghanaian household, remittances are used to support education. It is used for health, housing, and construction. And you know that brothers and sisters who are living abroad are constructing houses in Ghana, sending money for. We know that some of these monies are diverted into other things, even though they are told that they are building houses for them. They come and it's something else. But at least, and that asks you the question that if you are not controlling the remittances, the use of it can be diverted. Then we go on, see that in sub-Saharan Africa, the growth was largely driven by strong remittance in Mozambique, Rwanda, and Ethiopia. Now, we are saying today we have 5 billion. If you are not careful, Rwanda will come and overtake us. If you are not careful, Mozambique will come and overtake us because they are growing, Mozambique at 48%, Rwanda at 16%, and Ethiopia at 16%. So if our growth, which is just under 5%, we stay there, others will outpace us. So what are we supposed to do to increase our remittance growth? Why is remittances driving or growing in these countries? There are three main factors. The first one is increased labor migration. We are not saying you should go outside Ghana, but that can be explained in a country like Ethiopia, where they went through some very bad, horrific civil war. So in Ethiopia, the growth is significantly driven by that. But in other countries like Rwanda and Mozambique, it is Africans growing in the diaspora, they're making strategic attempts to identify them and to create opportunities for them to send money to Mozambique and Rwanda. Same thing, there are government policies that are targeted at Africans in the diaspora in these two countries, Rwanda and Mozambique. There are specific policies that are targeted at them. And today I'll give you specific examples of what others have done to target them and also to raise money from them. So growing diaspora, targeted government policies to facilitate remittance inflows are what is causing these countries to increase their growth. So if they are growing at 50% year on year, they will catch up with you shortly and they will outpace you shortly. It wouldn't be too long. Now you can see our trend in growth. Look at Ghana's growth. Just like I said, approximately 6% growth. Sub-Saharan is about 2.5% on average. So Ghana is growing higher than the Sub-Saharan growth rate. But the three countries I mentioned, some are growing as high as 50% year on year. So if you are growing at 5%, very soon it's like, you know, the Olympic Games. You can see the guy running behind you. The way he's coming, you can see that he will just come and pass you. And that's what's going to happen to us. So we should watch it. There's what we call inward remittance and outward remittance. We all know about inward remittance, money coming to us. But there are instances where we send money to support others outside. And that's what we call outward remittance. You speak briefly about the regulation of that as well. So like I said, remittance is about 6.4% of our GDP. In Kenya, they are doing this. Kenya has specific programs to support balance of payments using increases in remittances. They also know that remittance support their consumption and investment, so they have policies to support increase in remittances. So you can see that in Sub-Saharan Africa, we are in the 50 billions. Ghana is just about 5 billion. Now, the regulation of remittances. The Bank of Ghana, Ministry of Finance and Financial Intelligence, so Ministry of Finance, the Bank of Ghana, and Financial Intelligence Center, these three bodies regulate remittances in the country. So in a bid to operationalize the Payment System and Services Act, Ghana has created 5 categories of payment system providers. So we have 5 categories. So I guess at some point you should just think of synchronizing these. You know, when we have a lot of regulators in the system, there are so many payment structures, you create problems. If you synchronize them into one, you are able to regulate properly. Because a few years ago, people who were taking money with gold as a backing instrument made a strong argument that they have no regulator. And why did they say that? Because there are so many regulators. So we have remittance service provider license, 1. You need electronic money transfer issuer license. You need payment facilitation service provider license. You need merchant acquirer service license and a closed loop payment license. 5. Are they? So you go through all of this and you get a license. And the last thing you think about is just doing something to contribute to the economy. Because all these regulators have fees that you pay. Who gives this license to you for free? You have to pay. And so this is one of the problems, that you have 5 licenses that you have to get before you even engage in the remittance system. The Bank of Ghana introduced the guidelines for inward remittance by payment system providers to guide dedicated electronic money transfer issuance. So we have what we call MTOs, money transfer operators, and government through the Bank of Ghana operates or regulates them. Now, there's one point that I need to make here, that Ghana's Foreign Exchange Act prohibits outbound remittances, except you are doing through a bank, which is a good thing. Because if you are doing through a bank, you have to use your Ghana card now, and we are able to track it, so that you are not taking money out of Ghana to a place that we don't know, and also support things like illicit trading, drugs, and terrorism. So that's a very good thing. But we should not overly regulate, because that's a disincentive for people to use the Ghana must go bag for their remittances. So we should regulate it, but we should allow it to be flexible for people to comply, which I said, like if you have so many licensing regime, you create a problem. And so you can see the main participants, of course, Stanbic is there. Participants in a remittance system, you have got EcoBank, MTN, ARP, Apex Bank. These are the key players in our remittance system. Now, what are the challenges with regulation? So you can't just regulate, like I said. People have found different ways to do their remittances without being regulated, without paying taxes or fees to governments for the use of remittance system. So why is this the case? The first one I would say is bureaucracy and administrative burdens. The Bank of Ghana, Ministry of Finance and Financial Intelligence Center jointly responsible for oversight of remittances. So sometimes you are not sure who has more power over who. So these are 3 different bodies regulating remittances. And like I said, you have 5 issuer licenses that you have to get. So it is burdensome, and there's a lot of bureaucracy in the system. So that's the first challenge that you should address. The second one is the cost of compliance. Because of the excessive regulation. So if I want to start remittance and I need to get 5 licenses, that's a cost. What do I do if I get the license? When you come and use the service and I'm charging you fees, what do? I pass the cost to you. So if I am also going to use the service and there's a cost that's going to be passed on to me, would I use it? I'll just go to the airport, give money to someone and say, oh, when you go, Kweku Boateng, house number, just give what? The money to him. Forget about the banking system because the cost of compliance is too high. And it is driven by the fact that the cost of implementing the policy that we've put in place leads to cost or transaction cost, which we pass on to consumers. So I'd rather use the informal means. So cost of regulation increases the cost of compliance and also increases the cost of remittance system. So let's look at that. And then the last one is the large non-bank population. Yes, there are people who are still not in the banking system, and you'll be amazed. There's still a lot. Until the introduction of mobile money, there are a lot of people who had never interacted with the banking system, and they may never interact with the banking system. And so if we still have people who are unbanked and we do not make attempt to bring them into the banking system, it's also very difficult to regulate it. Because the person does not have a Ghana card, the person is doing transactions that are not regulated, and so you can't control it. So the large unbanked population, cost of regulation, and bureaucracy and administrative burdens are the three main challenges that we should address. Now, impact and recommendations. So we will talk about the impact and what the recommendations are. So strict remittance regulation, increased cost of compliance, I've said, and higher fees. So if that's the case, this may shift the use of official sources to unofficial sources. Strict remittance regulation increased scrutiny of transactions, which may result in delays in processing. So in addition to the cost, there's what we call delay. Because like I said, if all these regulators are looking into your document before allowing you to transfer, when someone needs money urgently, you use some other swift means. And then strict remittance regulation limits the availability of remittance services. So you may not even have it today if you want to transfer money to your brother in America, and you're not going to give somebody at the airport. Can you tell me where you go? Instantly. Yeah, you have a brother in America. You are not going to give someone to put in his bag. Can you tell me where you go instantly? The cheapest source, you have it. But if you want to transfer money to your mother in the village, you just walk out of this place, the mobile money vendor. So in the same way, you should create a medium for people to transfer easily. And it's not something that should be rocket science. The Bank of Ghana continues to strengthen the AML. So the recommendation is that we have to continue to strengthen our AML compliance. At some point, we were put on some blacklist in the European community because we were used as medium for illicit trading. That was a bad thing, but thank God we are out of that list. That's a good thing. But we have to enforce our AML compliance, ensure that people are not using this platform as a medium to transfer. Ghana also to develop efficient track flow system. So in other places, as soon as you transfer cash, it is tracked. You can always get a sense of who transferred, who gave the money to who. And so in instances where people are caught doing illicit trading, financing terrorism, they can trace it to the person who first sent the money. And so the question is, one of the reasons why we were put on a blacklist is that people use other means, come through Ghana, transfer the money, and it goes support illicit trade. So if Ghana is the hub for that, then you have to control it. If you don't control it here, you cannot also help in tracking this illicit trading. Then government should also implement initiatives to educate the public, particularly in the rural communities. So they have to understand that the safest way to transfer money and also to receive money is through the remittance system, the banking system. Because there is nothing like I gave it to my uncle, and my uncle gave it to someone in Hamburg, and it was in his bag, and by the time he landed at the airport, it was no longer in the bag. A few times I've been to the airport police station, you've seen people argue. The guy just landed, and the things that were given to him were not in his bag. Of course, by the time he went to the check-in system, someone just disappeared. That's a risk. But if you use the banking system, there's an insurance back to it. So even if the banks lose it, they have an insurance cover. And so we have to educate the people to understand the use of it. Now, Ghana's readiness to drive the ecosystem, how ready are we? And we are going to take lessons from how others are using it and capitalizing on remittances to increase the growth of their GDP. Countries in East and Southern Africa have taken some strategic steps, such as financial inclusion, reduction of remittance costs, and leveraging of digital technology. 3 things. Financial inclusion, bringing a lot more into the banking system. Reduction in remittance costs, I've just mentioned here, that's increased remittance costs. It's a disincentive for people to use it. And leveraging digital technology. So in Uganda and Tanzania, you can see that they use their mobile money. And I think one of the greatest innovations we've had came from East Africa with the M-Pesa, which is now driving mobile money all over. That's a very good innovation. So there is widespread adoption of mobile money in East Africa. So it's almost like significant cashless system, like almost zero cashless. So cash is 0%, almost 0%. So you pay, you sit by someone sent you something, just pay. You just show you click on something, you swipe. That's how. And it's encouraged. The old man in the village, the old woman in the village is just using something to swipe. To pay. So we have encouraged, and they have encouraged the cashless society. Uganda and Tanzania are following after Kenya, and they are doing that successfully. Diaspora bonds. We had this a few years ago. Where is that money? Let me tell you what others did. So, in Ethiopia, they knew they were going to make a lot of money from Ethiopians in the diaspora. Like I said, Ethiopia is growing at about 16% in remittance growth. So they launched what they call the diaspora bond, where Ethiopians outside can invest in the country through an agent that is credible. So in the minds of every African, if you give it to the African government, they will chop it. So the question to ask yourself is, an independent body sitting in the United States, JP Morgan, Credit Suisse, somewhere, Deutsche Bank, they are managing the diaspora bond. I invest, I get 9%, or even 5% less than the Euro bond, 5%. The guy is making good money. In the United States, that's even higher than the US Treasury rate. He would rather invest in a Ghanaian diaspora bond, paying 6% or 7%, than give to the US Treasury at 3%. And the benefit for him is that, and the pride he gets, that he has invested in this country. If we have not created that platform, that money will not come. If you create that platform, the money will come. And let me tell you what Ethiopia got. Ethiopia had Ethiopians purchase 4.9 billion in their diaspora bond. 4.9 billion. How much are we looking for from the IMF? Ethiopia has raised 4.9 billion. And let me tell you what they're using the money for. They are using the money for the construction of the Grand Ethiopian Renaissance Dam. You are crying over Akufo-Addo Dam. The diaspora bond can help you create the next dam. Palugu Dam has been on the drawing board for so many years. I won't say what happened though. Palugu Dam. It's in the manifesto. Somebody says it's in the manifesto. Thank God. So it will happen. But look at what somebody is doing. And Ethiopia, Egypt, you've heard all the issue about the Nile and how they are trying to construct hydro dam. Those areas, they have the capacity and the resources to construct hydro dam. So someone has gotten almost $5 billion to construct hydro dam. Very soon, he'll be supplying power to you. Very soon, you'll be buying power from them because you'll be going through them so. So to avoid that, let's create a platform. I spoke about diaspora bond in an infrastructure summit in East Africa. And there was a Ghanaian among the audience. So he came to ask me that the Ghanaian diaspora bond, where are they selling it? Where can he buy it? And I said, yes, we've spoken about it, but it's yet to be launched. So the guy has given me his number, that whenever it is launched, he would like to invest in it. That's a Ghanaian living in the United States. So there's money sitting somewhere in somebody's pocket. And for a much-needed resource in Ghana, and the money is sitting in somebody's pocket. So if you don't take the money, you don't create the platform for someone to channel the money will be sitting somewhere where it is being underutilized, in my opinion. Because that money sitting in the United States, he's probably investing at 3% interest. Whereas in Ghana here, we need that money so much for infrastructure developments, and we even pay more on that. Yet, that money is not coming because you have not created the platform to get the money transferred to us. So if you utilize the diaspora bond, we should go back to the drawing board. I hope that's also in the manifesto, and raise the money. Yeah, you put it inside. Then Kenya has also explored the issuance of diaspora bonds. When they did, about 450,000 Kenyan citizens subscribed to it. 450,000 Kenyan citizens subscribed to it. And you see, for them, their mobile money platform is so easy. So they just sit behind, they pay, they invest. Just do it. Sit behind your mobile phone and just invest. 450,000 citizens. So 450,000 Ghanaians contributing 1,000 Ghana cedis, at least. They raised some good money, 2.4 million. Even though the target was $10 million, but at least they raised 2.4 million. That can help address some of the problems. Then the last is AML platform. They are also engagement platform that encourages diaspora to send remittances through formal channels and invest in their home countries. These platforms have improved anti-money laundering and counter-terrorism financing. So what they've done is they've created platform or channels with international banks. I mentioned JP Morgan, Deutsche Bank, and all. So if you go there, you transfer money, it goes straight to Ethiopia, and they know their correspondent bank. And so there's no way someone will use the money to finance terrorism or even the civil war in their country because it's regulated. You go to the next. Our readiness, digital infrastructure. Ghana has seen significant investment in payment infrastructure. These investments include the GIPS. I've seen some GIPS members here. Ghana Interbank Payment and Settlement System. That was one of the brightest innovative ideas that we've seen implemented. That's good. This has made it easier and faster to process remittances. So that's a very good platform. But you should take it to the next level I'm going to discuss. High levels of internet penetration, which is also very good. Ghana has one of the highest internet penetration rates. We've created a platform. The question is, are you using it? The banking sector in Ghana is also mature. They have good banking system. And then we have also created a mobile money platform. So these are very good things, structures and infrastructure in place that we can utilize. So if today we are receiving 5 billion, but we are only growing at 6%, somebody is growing at 48%. What do? Use these 4 resources to also grow at even 20% or 30%. Otherwise, very soon, you'll be third. Then you go to fourth. Some years ago, Ghana, 4 times African champions. We only few. Today, others 5. Very soon, they'll get 6, 7, and then you will still be 4. So that's what we're doing. So today, we are second to Nigeria. Somebody's growing at 50%. He's running so fast. Before you realize, the person has outpaced you. So we have 4 platforms: digital payment system, the GIFT system, interbank penetration, banking sector, and then mobile money. Let's utilize it. So we have implemented what we call the AML system. The Ministry of Finance, the Bank of Ghana, and the Financial Intelligence Center govern and oversee remittance activities. So you can see these 3, like I mentioned. The Financial Intelligence Center was established in accordance with the Anti-Money Laundering Act and tasked to monitor all financial transfers larger than 50,000 Ghana cedis. So any transaction more than 50,000 Ghana cedis, they monitor it. They track it, they follow it through. I want to believe that the monitoring is just to help track and avoid illegal trading. Let's not use monitoring for purposes other than what it was established to. I think we should avoid the temptation of using that, because there are instances where we've had complaints that people have been monitored, and they were monitored because they were or had some relationship with other people who were politically exposed persons. That's wrong, because that's not what the monitoring is for. And so, whereas this is a very good thing because it helps curb anti-money laundering, money laundering, illicit trading, and others. We should also not use it for any purpose other than what it was established to. Financial institutions frequently report remittances data to the Bank of Ghana. And of course, when you make some transactions, and there are instances where I've heard stories of these fraudsters who go to the bank, they're going to take money from people that they have defrauded, and the banks ask them questions. And sometimes they were arrested there. That's a very good initiative too. You have banks who are alert and are able to flag these things. Let's encourage that so that our market or the Ghanaian market does not become like other countries who are known to have these fraudsters. It's a very good thing. Financial institutions and mobile money transfer operators must perform due diligence on, of course, you should be using your Ghana card. There are a few times that when you go to the Forest Bureau, they will have to ask you for your Ghana card, and that must be strictly enforced because it helps regulate it. You can easily get your Ghana card and carry it along with you to go and do a transaction. That's not too difficult. So we should insist on that. And as much as we want to make it easier, we should also avoid a situation where it's a platform where people are using it for other things. And so insisting on a Ghana card is a good thing. Remittance are one of the ways a nation can increase the supply of foreign exchange and investment. So first, infrastructure gaps. Many rural and remote areas lack the necessary infrastructure. So you think that in Accra, you have access to internet, everything. Travel outside, those of you who occasionally go for funerals, you can't even make calls. You have to go and stand on top of some mountain somewhere. Then you get one bar. Then you're able to make call or receive call. So there are infrastructure gaps. Like I said, if you capitalize on it, you make money. High cost of remittances, you should address that. The current average cost of sending $200 to Ghana is 7.1%. For you to send $200, you pay 7.1% on that. So that works to approximately $15. So $200, you pay $15. And that money, someone will count. Those days, when I used to live there, I used to buy kinky for £5. Then I'll convert. I'm like, how can I buy kinky for £5? But you just feel like eating kinky. So you go and buy it for £5. And sometimes when you go there and it's run out, you feel so sad. You are going to buy it for £5 and then you feel sad. So those who are transferring money to Ghana, it costs them a lot to transfer money to Ghana. And why? Because of the cost of regulation. And so we should, the period when we were on the blacklist, it was even more expensive to transfer money to Ghana when we were put on a blacklist because you have to go through a lot of regulation for them to even get approval for money to come to Ghana. So once we get off those lists, which I'll say they are naughty lists, you don't want to be on that list, you are able to reduce the cost of remittance. Then informal channels. A portion of remittances is sent through informal channels. Like I said, Ghana must go back. We've seen people just using the borders to transfer cash. In Ghana must go back. We've seen. And we should avoid that if we create the right environment. Then the last one is regulatory gaps. Like I said, there are instances where you are not too sure who is regulating who and who is regulating what transaction. So we have to avoid regulatory gaps. Ghana's readiness to drive remittance growth should be facilitated through the use of technology. The first one is advanced technology, AI. I don't think, maybe I need some guidance on it, but I don't think we have positioned ourselves strongly to welcome AI as a country and to capitalize on it. We are just watching other people do it. So a lot of companies are making billions of dollars to just do research and developments on how AI can drive things, the economy. What we are talking about today, advanced technology, AI, and machine learning can help us capitalize on remittances, just utilize it for our benefits. So advanced technology is one of them. Financial integration. Like I said, you get the 5 licenses, you have 3 bodies that are regulating. So I should know that from Ministry of Finance, I go to Bank of Ghana. From Bank of Ghana, the Financial Intelligence Center is also there. I'm done. case closed. So that integration of regulators should be there so that we know that it's integrated. You go to one center. For me, if you create one source, you go to Financial Intelligence Center, and that's where you get all the approvals. You get all the licenses. By the time you walk out of that place, you have your license. That will encourage a lot more people to register. And even someone in the village wanting to send money to his son or daughter abroad can do so easily. The person who is also looking to receive money will not drive all the way or travel all the way to come and meet someone at the airport to take cash. That's even too risky. So we allow that to happen where people can receive. Collaboration with all the various bodies. Then regulatory gaps. Let's avoid instances where there are regulatory gaps. One of the biggest, the last slide I have here, inventions in Africa is what we call the PAPS, the Pan-African Payment and Settlement System. Fast, affordable money transfer to Africa. So you use your cedi, and the person receives it in shilling in Kenya. The person receives it in Lyon. The person receives it in Pula in Botswana. The person receives it in Rand in South Africa. That's one of the biggest innovations that we've had. Robert Mugabe, this is one of the most, some of the unverified quotes. He says that sometimes when you look back at the girls you spent money on, rather than send it to your mom, you realize witchcraft is real. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Yao. Let's give him another round of applause. I am definitely sure that Robert Mugabe didn't say this, but I know there are a lot of people who would agree with this quote, that when you look back, you realize that you have made mistakes. Anyway, so thank you, Yao, for telling us all the challenges, the opportunities, and ending up with some recommendations. And you're right, there are many of us, even in this room, who would admit that we've actually been asked to, are you going back to Ghana? Can you just give this money to this person for me? And so when it comes to those funds, yeah, they come into Ghana, but ordinarily something small that would have been paid to the state, we don't get to pay that because nobody can actually track anything. And so that in itself will lead us to the point where you ask the question, even the 5 billion that we talk about, is that all the remittance into the country? Because we know that a lot of people, call us and say, are you going to Ghana? Can you give this person, say, $1,000 when you get there? He'll meet you at the airport and take it. £2,000, £500, he'll meet you at the airport and take it. Anyway, the good thing is that we have a lot of experts gathered in the room, and they'll be helping us, with suggestions, contributions, and questions. And so please, let the game begin. Start by indicating whether you want to make a contribution or you have a question or you want to make a comment, and I'll get a microphone to you. Let's get the microphones ready, and then we'll get them to you so that you can ask your question. Okay, there's one hand. Who else is willing to make a point? I'll get everything. We'll give everybody a chance, okay? My very good friend is always a regular feature. Please, let's get him the microphone. You give us your name and where you're coming from, and others who want to join the conversation can also do the same. Yes, please go ahead.
Thank you very much. My name is Eric Amponsambuatin. I'm with PKF. I'm happy that my friend mentioned money laundering. Most of us may not be aware, but as we speak, GRA has a program which they call the Special Voluntary Disclosure. And what it means is that through exchange of information, they have a lot of information on individuals from onshore, offshore interest. So I think that the government is doing well. So please, between now and the end of the year, if you own up and you go to the GRA, they will take you through the whole process. And then what you will not be paying will be the interest and then the penalty. So this one is just a way of giving you information. Now, we know that we have these monies that come in. Okay, and when they do come in, they help us in terms of getting money to spend. My issue is that if we have so much money on us and our output is very low, what happens? Inflation, okay? And let's not also forget, from where I sit, there are so many firms that operate in Ghana. At the end of the year, they move a lot of funds, dollars. All that we get is the 8% when they move those funds out. And I believe that that is also one area that the BOG must look at, because at the end of the day, it also has an effect on us. Finally, we are saying that we can use these remittances to support the budget. Okay, I am not too sure, because what I'm hearing for the past week or so, we've been hearing people making promises. We will do this. I will abolish e-levy. But nobody is asking them where they are going to get the funds from. Because I believe that if you're going to build a dam, even build a road, it costs you money. And personally, it doesn't make sense to me when somebody tells me that I'm going to do A, B, C, D, and yet you don't tell me how you're going to get the money, but rather you're going to do away with all of that. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any other person who wants to make a contribution or ask a question, just show by hand. Please, let's get a microphone to him so that he can also ask his question. Just tell us your name, and then you go ahead with your contribution.
Thank you so much. My name is Edmond Awaite, Value Added Book Services. My question goes to Dr. Atuahini. Thanks for the insightful presentation. Based on the presentation that you made and the impact of foreign remittances to Ghana, will you recommend that Ghana should strategically position people to, send people to outside Ghana to be able to make these remittances in the area to boost the Ghana economy? That like what we call brain drain in some strategic areas.
Okay.
Thank you.
Dr. Atuahini says he wants to address that question immediately. So please get him a microphone.
Thank you very much. I think it's been done. Those of you who have done, Professor Latte is here, those who have done PhD, is a replication. If you send people to Bangladesh, my example is always Bangladesh. 90% of remittances go through the banking system. If you like, you can check your facts. And Sri Lanka is the next. So I'm saying that, like Yao said, Nigeria wanted to do, let me address his position. Nigeria wanted to do strategic bonds. Recently at the World Bank meeting in Washington, the Nigerian finance minister, the federal, he wanted to do this, but he has a problem because they have done something earlier, which they need to, like you synchronizing the payment system. But if to address your issue, if we are a serious country, let us create a desk, whether in central bank or a department. Because you see, we are talking about 5 billion. As I said, it's bigger than cocoa. It's bigger than gold. So why don't you train people, empower them, so that they can even go and see what Bangladeshi do, so that we can replicate it, so that it will help the economy. Because you don't destroy the environment. It's only that somebody said, you send people and they go and work, and they'll bring the money. So for me, it should be a strategic agenda, so that we can reap in more foreign exchange, especially through the banking system. Because that will support the foreign exchange reserves, equally address this accelerated depreciation of the currency. Sorry, Winston, I did the work yesterday. Somebody brought 400 million cedis for a bank. At that time in 2020, the currency was 5.1. When we pick it in December, it has declined to December 2020, 11.3. When I put it, which is $35 million from 69, as I worked on yesterday, it has reduced to 25%. All because the currency is running like Olympic Games runner. So if we can attract more reserves, so I believe that this will be these party people. They should see me in chambers and let them charge a consultancy fee and tell them how strategic you can get the foreign exchange. It's doable. It's doable. It's doable. Don't let us take it. It's not as difficult as cocoa planting, not as mineral, because the people are there. And if you go to the American mines, I was speaking recently to Dr. Tony Eben, the gold mines. He told me that if you go to Canadian embassy, it's like Kotoko in those days and Haas. People will go and go. So why don't we create the mechanism where we can track, trace, and capture the foreign remittances, and that will support the economy.
Thank you very much. I think there's another question. Yes, let's get a microphone to him.
Yeah, my name is Charlie Bruce Jr. I'm from Gostrich and then AGVO, digital marketing. The gentleman spoke about money laundering, and we've been having a conversation about that on this table for a couple of minutes now. You know, there's guys who do this black market thing on the roadsides, and I see one at airport just in front of the police station. Can we classify that as money laundering as well? And how is it affecting us based on the conversation we are having here? And if it's affecting us, what is the government doing about these things? When you go to Community One, now they're holding the foreign currencies like jeans that they are selling. It's very alarming. I speak passionately about these things because I feel as a country we've lost it when it comes to that kind of thing. I don't know if there is something that can be done about it, or if there is something being done about it already. The expert can speak to that, please.
Okay, thank you. Let's get the microphone to this place. I think there's another question, and maybe, yeah.
Yeah, thank you very much. My name is Eric Korte. I'm the country manager for Cellulant here in Ghana. So this goes to you, Doctor. So we all know that the guidelines for inward remittances was issued in 2021, right? And looking at your presentation, the first question is that, are you aware that in November 2023, the Bank of Ghana, taking into consideration all the challenges that you have mentioned, brought a revision to the guidelines? And the second question to that is that if you have looked at the amendment, which is specifically on Section 6 and Section 7, do you think it is sufficient enough? Thank you.
Okay, thank you. There's another question behind, then we'll get to Dr. Etiahene to address these questions.
Kofi Lucas is my name, Critical Strategic Thinkers, founder. I don't know, Dr. Etiahene, is it the Kumasi, my friend, some years ago? Well, we'll talk. Okay. What is the purpose of this meeting or this gathering? Graphic is doing well, bringing us together to discuss some of these issues. But I think as a critical strategic thinkers, we need to have an agenda. How do we make sure that 1/3 of the population who are vulnerable are being taken care of, to be able to meet the Sustainable Development Goals 1 and 2 by 2030. Sustainable Development Goals was launched in 2012. From that time to this time, what have we been able to do as a nation? We must think of the poor, the needy, the less privileged, and the vulnerable. Daily Graphic, that is Friday, June 21st, published in the front page, this. 7.3 million Ghanaians face poverty. What are we doing as a nation? Because if we don't take care of them, you and I will not have peace of mind to sleep. In your home, you have the security. In your office, you have the security. What about in between? Have we been thinking about that? How do we work to make sure that we'll be able to deal with these issues? First, I believe strongly that we are not making use of NGOs in these countries.
Okay.
And we must use the NGOs, and they can rake in 4 billion cedis, at least 4 billion cedis every year.
All right.
And I believe strongly that the politicians should also factor in SDG 1 and 2 and 8.
Thank you very, very much.
And I'm sure we'll be heading towards somewhere. Thank you.
Thank you very, very, very much. Do we have a representative of the fintechs here? I'd like to know what your views are on this conversation. So after Dr. Atuahene, if there's any fintech rep here, I'd like to know what your thoughts are. But yeah, first, Dr. Atuahene, yes.
Thank you, Winston. I think one thing I've learned, I'm quite old. I'm close to 70 years now. One thing I've learned in this country is that we can pass laws, we can pass regulations, but as to application of it, that is where the issue. We have talked about Payment Services System Act 987, 2019. We've talked about the foreign exchange. All that I'm saying that Yao said, let us synchronize. Regulatory synchronization is trying to do the best to ensure that the remittances actually flow properly or through the proper channels where it can be captured to address the balance of payment, currency account deficit, currency depreciation, building the foreign reserves. What you said, I have tracked the balance. The Bank of Ghana account just released in June. I was expecting that I will see the remittances, which they said is 57 billion, would appear in one of the statements. Seriously. In their statement, the authorized dealer bank recorded 2.8 billion, which is even far lower than the Bank of Ghana, than the World Bank 4.63. Then you begin to make a statement that in your publication, 2023 audited account, it said that fintech brought in 57 billion cedis. They were quiet. Yao sit here. I'll ask Yao. IAS 21. It clearly said that you must put the foreign exchange before you translate. Yao, is this so? It not be so? It was not so. The take with 22 billion cedis also was there. When I track it to the balances, what you call the Nestro balances of Banco, I didn't see it. So what I'm saying that, Yao said, let us synchronize it, streamline it, so that we will get the benefit use of these remittances inflow to support the currency, the build the reserves, and improve the trade deficit. So all that I'm saying, and I've been saying it, and I'll say it and say it.
Okay. Yes, Yao, you want to make a point?
So one of the contributors asked about regulation and how we see people overtly flout the law. Right in front of a police station, illegal money dealers who are just following you. Once you slow down, they come to your car, okay, you want to change, you want change. If you think Ghana's situation is bad, go to Nigeria. At the airport, the guy is just showing you cash like this. You want to change? And sometimes I wonder, so the central bank governor of Nigeria travels through this airport and sees these guys there. And they walk with you all the way to the car park, just flashing the cash like that. I think, and you travel with other people from South Africa, do you do this in Ghana? Because right at the airport in South Africa, they will even advise you to change money at the airport because, and do you know why? Because the rate at the airport is better than any other rate in the country. That's a simple way to do it. So those guys, they don't need to be there. If you've created a situation where even changing money at the airport, you get a better rate, there's no incentive to even go and use a black market. This is a very simple thing.
Yeah.
But you fail to do it.
Anyway, thank you very much, Yao. So we have the Director of FinTech and Innovation of the Bank of Ghana here, Kwame Opong. Maybe you just say a few things, Kwame. Thank you very much for joining us.
Good morning, everyone. Apologies for being late, but happy to be with you once again. So I've had the opportunity of listening to much of this discussion online on my way here. And let me be clear in addressing some misinformation. You do not need 5 licenses in the Republic of Ghana to do inward remittances. There are fintechs in this room who know that. Please show by hands. If any of you have 5 licenses, let me know right here. It does not exist. That's one. When it comes to remittances, Bank of Ghana has adhered to the highest of international standards and best practices, particularly with regards to the fact that fintechs themselves are not banks. Every fintech who is involved in remittance in Ghana is not a remittance company. They are the local partner of either a bank or a bank in partnership. They can have partnerships with duly registered and licensed money transfer operators, such as the Western Unions, the MoneyGrams, and the rest. Fintechs came into this space back in the early 2010s, 2012s. What were they doing? They had better platforms, a bit more efficient. They approached customer issues and resolution a bit differently, and so they went into partnerships with banks. In doing so, when banks receive this inflow, just like you remember, you would go to a bank branch with a number, a code, and you collect cash, they just simplify the disbursement on it and they did it faster. And so this partnership was beneficial to everyone. Fast forward to 2019, Ghana passed a law called the Payment Systems and Services Act, which, by the way, forms the basis and blueprint for many of our sub-regions and our counterparts' payment laws as well. And for those of you in this room who are in the other markets, I'm sure you can recognize the blueprints and the DNA of that there. I was not a Bank of Ghana then, and so the feedback that I can give at the time was that I think there were elements in there that were novel and has now gone across the continent. Certainly, this is an industry that is evolving very fast, and so will the laws around it as well, and the rules around them. However, when this law was passed, now fintechs in Ghana had to be licensed in order for them to fully be under the supervision of Bank of Ghana. And this is very important, because as we wrote the electronic money issuer guidelines back in and passed it in 2015, mobile money was a target of that. But the fintechs who sat at the table, who were then called aggregators, were growing in size and scope. And therefore, it became important to regulate and regularize their activities. So the 2019 Act sought to do that. 2021, an inward remittance guideline was introduced. That guideline was basically saying, we know you do business with these entities. We know you are traveling around the world, every corner, where there's a Ghanaian, there's a foreigner, someone sending money into Ghana for friends, family, and whoever they are supporting. And you're building partnerships to make it more efficient. I mean, remember when, maybe around 2008, 2006, if anyone sent money from any Ghana store, either in Brooklyn, Bronx, or, I don't know, Tottenham, it would cost you about how much you send $1,000. In the US, it cost about $10. Today, we're seeing advertisements of people sending money, offering that you send money at what? No charge, in some cases, £1. That is the kind of efficiency in both costs as well as operational efficiency, such as the fact that you can receive your money instantly. These were the innovations that were brought by the fintechs, and for that reason, Bank of Ghana sought to regularize their presence and activities there. And so we adhered to the international standards, including adopting Wolfberg principles in what we do, and designed collaboratively with industry representation what became known as the Inward Remittance Guidelines, which in 2023, we updated again to reflect the development in the sector once more. And so every fintech, and by the way, there are only 2 categories in Ghanaian fintech ecosystem. And I should also mention, the word fintech is broad. So you have to appreciate when people confuse this. A tap-tap-send can call itself a fintech, but they are not a Ghanaian fintech. TerraPay is a fintech, but they are not a Ghanaian licensed payment service provider. So you would notice the interchangeable nature of some of these things. Ghana and Bank of Ghana licenses payment service providers, but they are all part of the broad category of people and service providers who offer financial services leveraging technology. So it could be an insurance company using technology. They are a fintech, and they are called InsurTech. This is the broad portfolio of those entities. So Bank of Ghana only licenses payment service providers. There are 2 categories of payment service providers who are allowed to do inward remittances. One is the enhanced payment service provider, And the second is the dedicated electronic money issuer, also known as mobile money provider. So the mobile money guys are there, and I think you've seen that over the years. The enhanced payment service provider, the only other one within the other categories who's able to do that. What they do, just like the mobile money providers, if they find a partnership with an MTO abroad, they have to have a settlement bank here in Ghana because no PSP holds money by themselves. This is very important. And so whatever inflow they have goes to that banking partner's corresponding banking relationship. That's the channel through which it comes. There is no corresponding bank that would give a fintech from the Republic of Ghana an account anyway. I think we all know that. This is a financial sector discussion, so we're all clear on that. And so as it stands, there is no fintech, as we call it in Ghana, interchangeably with PSP, who is able by themselves to do certain things under the inward remittance guideline. It is absolutely clear you cannot do that. And you unfortunately have seen us having to take very stringent measures, including sanctioning some entities who have violated, not even what is being discussed here, have violated aspects and elements of the inward remittance guidelines. We are very clear about that, and I think it's important that the public understands that no fintech is holding Forex for themselves. They don't have corresponding bank accounts and relationships because technically they cannot. I'm not sure which one will give it to them anyway. But what they have done to this sector and done with this sector, and it's also important to add this point here, they are in partnership with one of the universal bank. In fact, now they can have 3 banking partners with whom they do this business. That's it. So every fintech in this room has a corresponding, a settlement bank partner. They do business with them. In fact, they've done business with them going on some of them for the last almost 20 years. For those who've been in the system for much longer, I see some in the room. And so, don't worry, I'm not calling you out. But it just goes to show that this is an evolving industry. But I also should mention something. Remittance is a very powerful sector for Africa and a very powerful source of Forex for us. And it's important that we continue to evolve policy, as we did even in introducing it in 2021, the inward remittance guideline, updating it to account for realities such as one partner bank may not be enough, give them 3, but you can't give them too much, so there's price discovery and all kinds of problems that could generate into things we don't want to deal with. The second aspect had to do with the emergence of a concept called aggregators, those who may sit elsewhere as remittance companies, but they partner with other remittance companies and funnel traffic into Ghana. It is not a problem. It is an efficient way operationally, but it has its own risks, and so we took the step to make sure that whoever you are aggregating for, we know who it is, so that you don't go and route bad traffic into Ghana, and now we have to deal with certain risks that we don't want. It is part of our mandate as a central bank to ensure sector stability and resilience of our financial service ecosystem. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Kwame Opong. Yes, Dr. Chani, you want to make a point briefly so that we can pick other,
I
comments.
speak to the data, and I always like to say the data. My colleague here has made a statement, and I want him to look at what I'm saying. In the Bank of Ghana, audited account by the Auditor General, the authorized dealers brought in 2.1 billion remittances, is stated there, 2022. In 2023, the authorized dealer banks brought in 2.8 billion from your own statement. But when I look at your audited accounts, the governor, or the Bank of Ghana, not the governor, they said the fintech brought in 22 billion cedis to this country. That 22 billion, if you use IAS 21 to translate, that will be about 3 billion. So between the 2.1 billion and the 3 billion that you stated in you, there is a disparity of 900 million, close to 1 billion. 2023, the authorized dealer banks made 2.8 billion signed and certified by the Auditor General. And your own statement, you said the inward remittances brought 57 billion cedis by the rate of closing rate of 11.1. Converted is about 5 billion. Now, the 5 billion stated in the governor's book, in your statement, and what is on your statement, there is a disparity between 2.8 and 5 billion. How much is it? 2 point something billion, is it? Yes. That is what we are saying. If you make one statement there, and then on your other statement, when I validate it, it doesn't come together. It doesn't sync together. Because the Auditor General statement is signed by the auditor. And the governor's statement said 22 billion for 20. So when I trace and track to the auditor's statement, there is a disparity of 900 million.
Okay.
And then 5 points. So, Mr. Fintech, Mr. Pong, could you please elaborate and explain this disparity? Because if in one state is 2.8 and the other state is 5 billion, we are talking a huge sums of money. So can you elaborate? So those of us who have been tracking it and chasing it would understand.
Okay, thank you. Yes, briefly.
Thank you very much, sir. I appreciate it. Let me also say, at least for starters, I'm quite excited that fintech has become mainstream. For those of you who started this industry early on, it must have felt like a small cult, doesn't it? Today is mainstream, and I think it's important that we have such focus on it. So I appreciate the effort that is being put into looking and tracking here. I just want to make some clarification. I think we have to separate what's in the annual report broadly versus the specific statements. And secondly, I think you have to also understand the two channels through which fintech operates. If you look, I think one of the things that is being mixed up when I heard the earlier suggestions, net inflows being 2.8 billion is different from what we typically publish in our MPC reporting. That gives you both the inflow and outflow, and that's why you see the 5 billion. So I think we have to separate the two. Now, I'm being cautious here because I'm not the director in charge of, research, or I'm not with financial stability, but I think this is very important because it's actually general information that I think if you look for yourselves, you can compare the Bank of Ghana annual report, and you can also look at our MPC reporting for that year. I think if you look at that, you find that clarification. The other thing that I should mention is, when we are highlighting the contribution in these reports, these are Bank of Ghana's annual report. It's not only about our financial statement, but also the activities. So you would see things in there about how many entities we licensed. You see things in there about our sandbox program, which the UK government highlighted in their documents as well. You see many things that we do, initiatives by Bank of Ghana that is captured in there. It goes beyond the financials. And so when we highlight something out there, because even IAS, I think that requirement you're talking about is a standard that pertains only to the actual reporting, not any other publication, because we mention 600,000 agents, X amount, Y, that pertains to the additional commentary outside of the statement, highlighting the contribution of fintech to the broader ecosystem. Now, as I mentioned earlier, every $1 coming through these fintechs comes through a commercial bank. So that's where the reporting comes from. That's very important. The second thing is, it's also important to highlight all these guys either going into direct partnerships or supporting a bank, because don't forget, banks are also doing digital remittances, inward remittances. When an entity that is a licensed fintech supports that, they come to the table with a certain value, and that needs to be accounted for. And these are things that we highlight in our report to show the value that fintech is adding, whether it's financial inclusion or anything else. So I think it's important that you look at some of these reports in context. For us, as you know, fintech@bog.gov.gh, if you email us, we'll gladly meet with you. We'll share with you. We'll walk you through how some of these things work. You get a sense of the models, and you'll be able to assess and understand it better. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Kwame Opong. I see a hand. Yes, your hand has been up for a very long time. So thank you, Kwame. Thank you, Dr. Chiahine. Let's get back there. Let's get the microphone to the gentleman at the back. I'm sure you'll be the last person to ask a question. I see your hand as the only hand, too, because our time is up now. Yes, go ahead.
Thank you very much. My name is Francis Ofusukobi. I do building construction and agriculture. Looking at the environment in the room, I want to plead with the organizers that it's a serious conversation and we are closing, so they should organize another one for us. My question is on the last presentation that Anke Yao did, talking about the PAPS, a Pan-African Payment System for AFTA. It's a very important initiative for especially those of us who are doing business, we want to export to other African countries. But the problem is that this news is not out there. Even if you go to the bank, you see that they have written, we are doing PAPS, and these are the countries that they have just written it there. So if you can't even read, you might not know, if you are even a customer of the bank, you might not know that PAPS, they are doing it. So I'm pleading with the big men here and the organizers, if we can get this payment system across the business class, because if you go outside there and ask the business people, they don't know anything about this, and they are still sending the money to Europe, to America, where all the profits on it are being taken by different people. Meanwhile, we are here going hungry. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I'll take that as a suggestion. But let's get the microphone here, just 1 minute, so that maybe you're fortunate enough to have a response.
Thank you very much. My name is Lawrence Saki from Ghana Association of Banks. This is not a response to him, actually, but some of the issues that is often reported to us by the business community. We all understand the relevance of at least remittances to the overall economic growth of this country. But the key issue is, as Kwame suggested, it's a developing sector that we all need to come up with ideas in how to enhance and make it more efficient. And one thing I would like to highlight is, I think in making it more efficient, we should look at the exchange rate volatility and also look at the disparity in the rates in the black market and in the mainstream banking system. Because just Friday, a friend of mine who is doing his PhD in Germany just called me that, I have some 50,000 euros. Charlie, how's the rate in the black market? I said, no, I'm working for the banks. There's no way I can check that for you. So just transfer it through your bank. I gave him the sort code and everything and all that. So in making the system more efficient and for us to benefit from the remittances, we should pay critical attention to the exchange rate volatility and then the disparity in the rate in both the commercial bank and then the black market. Thank you.
The Stanbic Bank Breakfast Meeting, there we've been getting excerpts and also getting people's thoughts about what concerns them.